Welcome to another episode of The Shift with Elaine Agar. Today, I speak with Paul Sanbar. He is a man with a remarkable career path that took him from a passion for architecture to the business realm, and then into psychotherapy, and then into this emergent field of executive coaching and leadership development. And the playful twist here is that he actually uses Lego serious play in his work today. And so if you are a skeptic about those colorful bricks and the impact they have on your own personal and professional development, this episode is definitely for you. Paul will share how these bricks have become a cornerstone in his coaching methods, as well as enhancing organizational and personal growth. We're also going to peel back the layers of therapy versus coaching, exploring how Lego can provide tangible outcomes for those seeking to address present and future challenges. It is a very playful way to get people engaged. And I think, again, if you're a skeptic, definitely check out this episode. And furthermore, Paul is going to unpack for us the cognitive science that underscores the value of Lego series play and how this activity can ground us in a digital world. I learned quite a bit. It was a really insightful conversation. Lego series play is something that I've used in the past, but I didn't really understand the benefit of it as deeply as I do after this chat. So if you're interested in a dynamic career and transformation and just, the coaching world that's out there, this episode is for you. Check it out. And as always, let me know what you think. Paul, welcome to the Shift podcast.
Thank you so very much. I'm honored to be here.
You and I both. I'm actually very excited to talk to you because you're doing some really awesome things within the learning and training space. But before you dove into this world, you were actually a psychotherapist, right? And then you changed to being kind of certified coach, and now you're using this hands-on thinking, using Lego serious play. I want to know more.
Yeah. I jokingly refer to it as a fortunate series of overcorrections. And if I can somehow organize myself enough, that book will finally get finished with that same title. Uh, I actually started off wanting to be an architect. That was really what I wanted to do when I was young. I loved using my hands and building things. I loved being really precise about what I was creating. With hindsight, now I look back upon that time, I was very much trying to control my environment because there was a bit of chaos going around outside in my youth, but that's just part of growing up. So I wanted to be an architect, and I went to school originally for that, and realized very quickly that that as much as I loved building, it wasn't quite right. And so I actually very quickly switched to the business world. My dad was an accountant. I thought, well, that's what I'll do, follow in his footsteps. And as much as I loved the business world, I was pretty altruistic more so then than I am now as a young person. And I realized just how much I wanted to help the person rather than help their wallet. And so my next overcorrection, if you will, was to leave the business world. I worked in startups and after finishing with my undergrad business, and I overcorrected and became a psychotherapist. And I absolutely loved learning about my why, learning about why I did things, why people do anything. And I loved
Mm,
I loved so much the idea that around the that one-on-one work that I did as a therapist where I looked at it as a win-win relationship. I realized, and it was a bit cloudy, but I thought back then that the business world, everything felt very transactional or very zero-sum game where if I won, you lost. And that win-win relationship really felt right for me. And so a therapist I became. And I'm happy to keep going. But
yeah. No,
Yeah,
tell me more. So like that's first of all, I love that. I love it. And a lot of my audience are people who are just, going through so much change and very multidimensional individuals. So I think it definitely speaks to everything this podcast is about. But what I'm curious about is, okay, so you went into psychotherapy and you did that. And then how did you then transition? And now you kind of almost made a full circle. So you're
yeah.
building, but maybe just using Legos, but in a different way, right? So how did
You're
that come around?
taking, yeah, you're very astute, and yeah, so you see the kind of full circle that overcorrection actually brought me back all the way to the beginning, right? So, I spent about 7, 8 years working towards becoming a therapist in the state of California. It takes quite a bit of time, and as I was getting closer to that end of licensure, I realized that I'd actually moved a bit too far away from my passions, which
Mm,
was really I did love being in leadership, being in the business world, and also building things, being creative and using my hands. And so I kind of moved back towards the business world. I still think, executive coaching and leadership development has so many roots in psychology. It's just a little bit different, more positive psychology focused. But I did move back and realize that, in between business and building things and psychology was this wonderful place of executive coaching and leadership development. And what I really ultimately realized is that I was always an architect. It was just a different medium.
mm,
Left the idea of building wood and concrete structures
mm-hmm,
and realized that it was actually about helping to build leaders.
mm-hmm,
And more so, my passion was using my hands to help them build and create who they wanted to become. And that's where Lego Serious Play comes in, which I'm happy to share more about. But really, it did my journey, and that's why I call it a fortunate series of overcorrections. And of course, what is that? That's just a reframe, right? A reframe of all well, I failed at that, and then I failed at that. But then when I look back, I said, you know what? It all had a purpose to get me to where I am today, an architect of
mm-hmm.
leaders.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. It's definitely like it's a very nice kind of journey that you've had so far, and you keep going. You never know where you're gonna keep going from this as well.
Yeah. Yeah, we keep building, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the wonderful thing is that we can is that through the power of growing and evolving, we can look at what we built and break it apart and build it better, right? It's about that the wonderful ways that failure, which has such a negative connotation, right? Of course, but there are so many wonderful ways to fail. It's about learning, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Define for us a little, tell us a little bit about Lego Sears for those people who are listening, like what is,
Yeah.
we know Legos, we know Sears, but what is it all about and how are you
Yeah.
using this in leadership development?
Yeah, yeah. So Lego Serious Play does come from the people at Lego. I must say, I do not work for them. They created this organizational development tool, and they actually created it for themselves when they were struggling as a company in the early to mid 90s. And they looked within to figure out, well, how do we regain our footing as a great toy company? As a child of the mid 80s and early 90s, I knew I left my Lego behind and started playing with action figures. And so I totally understand their story and why they were struggling.
Mm,
They looked within and figured out that while yes, we all have this notion and an idea of building with Lego that became really popular, especially during the pandemic when we sat at home and we had nothing to do but play with puzzles and build things, right? Um, but the idea of Lego Serious Play is not about building things, right? I grew up building, cars and planes and houses with Lego. That is playing with Lego and building a thing.
Mm,
Lego Serious Play is about building our emerging thoughts and ideas. We are meaning-making creatures. If if something doesn't have meaning, we want to give it meaning because it gives our life meaning, that the things around us have meaning. And we're also storytellers. And sometimes some of us are challenged by being able to share a story, especially when there's feelings and things that are activating us internally when we're sharing the story. But when we can build an artifact of our thought, so no longer building a plane, but putting a couple bricks together and saying, these few bricks mean taking flight, and my career is taking flight right now.
mm,
And when I can hold that artifact in my hand and talk about it instead of talking about myself, some people are better able to feel anchored in their ability to share the story.
mm,
One, because they're not as associated into the feelings because they're talking about it instead of I. And
mm-hmm,
because they're applying meaning to the different bricks and the different things that they're able to hold in their hand. And then the powerful thing is that life and so much of leadership and so much of the work that we do is about how we connect our thoughts and ideas to other people's thoughts and ideas.
mm-hmm,
And when they're words, we can talk about them and talk about, maybe in a nebulous way how they connect. But when we actually, let's say you and I build our idea or thoughts about what we're trying to accomplish if we're on a team together,
mm,
we actually connect our thoughts and talk about how they connect. You're actually building a three-dimensional representation of of a conversation. And that makes it so much more powerful and deep. And also the words and thoughts don't float away because they're tangible, imbued in those Lego bricks.
mm.
I get excited about this because I've seen so many transformative conversations happen through the power of Lego serious play methods.
Mm. Well, listen, I've observed a few of those, and I have not seen a group of adults turn into playful children faster than I have when they're building Legos. That's all I have to say. But it's a lot of fun. But I'm curious, and I'm probably not wording this question correctly, so it's just gonna come out as is. But I wonder from your just experience with, people in therapy and all of that, if there's a piece of us subconsciously that probably comes out through this, because when you're building, because it's so difficult, to your point, so difficult to open up, especially in the workplace and especially for leaders. And I
Yeah,
wonder how much, if you've seen anything that come through where people were even surprised. They're like, well, I'm not sure where it's coming, but
all the
here it
time.
is. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. One, just piggybacking on what you just shared, when you put a group of people in a room and give them some toys, yes, there's going to be some resistance. There'll be a couple people that are like, "What are you making me do right now?" And in my mind, I go, "Oh, that person needs it more than anybody here," right? Because at its core, we're all just big kids, right?
Yeah.
No, we
Pretending to be adults.
pretending to be adults, right? And I talk to people, I say, were you having more fun in your life when you were when you were 9 or 39? And
Mm-hmm.
generally people are like, it was probably more fun when I was 9. Well, why was that? It was that way because because anything was possible and because we were using our imagination. And also, most importantly, to get back to your question, we were using the amazing knowledge that lies in our hands. We have so much knowledge that exists in our embodied cognition, how I like to refer to it, right? I know when I'm working with a team or even maybe an executive and we're working one-on-one, sometimes I just see them as heads walking in a room. And let's say we have a 6-month executive coaching engagement. Sometimes it's just a win if if I see them leave and it's a whole body, they're slightly more in touch with what is happening below their neck, right? You
Mm-hmm.
know, logic gets you far in life, but without marrying logic with emotion, without that bridge that connects the two, we are not whole humans. And so to back to your statement, when you put a group of people in a room and you have them just connect not only with themselves, but also with each other and do it with their hands. It grounds them. It also kind of allows them to step back into what it was like to be nine, to think about possibilities and back to that notion where we are meaning making creatures. You know, I train people in how to use Lego serious play in one-on-one coaching and I run other programs and I tell people, listen, you know, if somebody is talking about their Lego artifact, just be curious about, you know, if they were tapping on that brick a couple extra times, say, what does it mean? What's going on right now that you're tapping on that brick? And what invariably what the client will share is, well, you know what? I wasn't really, nothing really came, but now that you ask, this and this and this, because we love applying meaning. We
Mm-hmm.
love making a connection to who we are. And when we can externalize those thoughts and ideas and feelings and notions and desires in and imbue them in these tangible objects, we're like I said, we're better anchored and able to see how I can connect with you or with the team.
Hmm.
So,
And you've done this with, several kind of Fortune 500 companies. How
yeah.
has have you seen a shift in reception of, using Lego Serious Play? I'm just curious, have you seen it evolve? Because I've seen a lot of different things and it's still not as popular, I feel, as it should be. We're still stuck in like old ways of training and doing stuff. So I'm just curious if what have you seen in this area?
You know, I really have seen a pretty big shift, and of course, we'd love to you know blame or give a test to the pandemic for a lot of it, but so much of it when people just realize, what truly is important and who am I, right?
Mm,
And what do I really want? And I think companies are obviously, the culture of a company is just a summation of all the people and I think companies and organizations are really more inclined to wanna to wanna allow people to really bring their full selves, right? I
mm-hmm,
know 20 plus years ago, I didn't feel like I could bring my full self to work, which is why I left to go get a master's in psychology, right? But now I think it's much different. And now just the notion of allowing more play, purposeful play, right? Not just
mm-hmm,
for the
right.
sake of play, but allowing more of this idea of play and the notion of Simon Sinek talks about the infinite games. It was brought up much before he wrote about it a little bit, but this notion of back to that idea of a zero sum game where so much of the business world and organizations it did I think in the past more it was more transactional, but you see now with people and not to get too much into social justice, but how important it is for people to be able to you know a lot love the companies they work for or the products they buy,
Mm-hmm,
and how much the idea of people and the importance of who they are as to why companies are focusing more on allowing different types of ways of working in. It's not just this zero sum, binary thing. It's both and purposeful play is such a wonderful way to bring the both and
mm-hmm,
into the ways of working. It's serious, because it's work, but it's
Hmm.
also play. That's the vote.
Right. Yeah, yeah, I think it's a nice combo, and I think it's again, there is something, and I wonder, I guess if it depends on a learner, but there is something with using your hands and visualization aspect of Lego Serious Play, and it's also, like you can't replace that with an online module type thing, right? Or I mean, maybe in some case, but rarely, right? Depends on the
Yeah.
topic, but
And I think that's as we and listen, I love technology. I wrote my master's thesis on online communication and the relationships between the client and therapist, or and now in this case coach and client. And so I love technology and I love using it. And I think that the more and more we move towards the digital, the more important the analog is. And so
Mhm.
so I just say, listen, uh, do all that digital stuff. It's great, it's important, and don't forget about the humanness of what it means, of what we're all doing this here for, right?
Yeah.
And so Lego, and it just, I jokingly say, unless you just stepped on a Lego, pretty much everybody has a positive mental image of Lego. And so it's really helpful to bring that in. And like I say, usually it's that company that's like, oh yeah, we don't do those type of things. Usually those are the companies that need it the most.
They usually probably enjoy them the most as well.
Once
Once
they
they
bring
actually
the
do it, yeah.
story
Right.
that we don't do that, or that's too woo, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why, the wonderful thing about Lego Serious Play, it is deeply steeped in evidence-based, neuroscience and psychology. There are tons of research papers based on the hand-mind connection, based on
Mm.
metaphor and meaning making. And so, for those very analytical process orientated organizations, I just say, here's some here's some research. I'm not a clown coming in to blow up. I'm coming in to do some really detailed work, just doing it differently.
Hmm.
And that's
Yeah.
what, you know, generally the answer to the problem lies somewhere inside of the question or inside of the problem. And it's our work as facilitators or as coaches or as trainers to help people just view the situation differently with a new set of eyes. And
Mm.
so this tool, because it is very much it take moving out of just the head and into the whole body and using these amazing tools at the end of our arms, it allows people to see the same situation with a different set of eyes. And generally the answer will appear when you see the situation with that new perspective.
Mm. With 2024 and just like everything that's just going on with innovation, stuff like that, is there anything happening with Lego Sears Play like that you're excited about, or like what are some cool things that are happening this year for you?
Yeah, well, so Lego Serious Play is very much an OD tool. It's very much a one-to-many culture team organization tool, and I use it for that purposes.
Mm-hmm.
I am back to my story. I am passionate about those intimate one-on-one conversations, as a therapist and the majority of my work being as an executive coach one-on-one. Really what's most exciting for me is the framework that I've spent really it feels like a few decades putting together, but really just in the last 3 4 years taking my experience as a therapist and my decade plus as a coach to build a framework specifically for one-on-one coaching
Mm-hmm.
with this framework. So that's what's most exciting for me. Of course, I'm biased. It's something that I create.
Yeah. But is
Um,
it using Lego Series Play as well?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
okay.
No. It is so Lego Serious Play is like I said, it the foundations of it is a one-to-many tool, right?
Right, right.
One being a facilitator working with an organization or with a team.
Mm-hmm.
I and so when we work one-on-one using this methodology and the framework that I've developed, it's much more of an iterative process where my client may build what's on their mind. And here's a very brief explanation of the framework. They build what's on their mind. And and that's just like any coaching conversation where hopefully the client has reflected on a challenge, a problem, a situation, something,
Mm-hmm.
and they build it. Instead of just thinking and talking about it, they actually build the artifact and they share it with me.
Mm-hmm.
And then we talk about, well, how would you like to see it? And
Mm.
these conversations, whether it's with a team or an individual, especially, with coaching, it is a from here to there conversation, right? Therapy generally is a from here, go to the past, figure out what was in the past so we can heal the present, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas coaching is much more about you are here. Where is it that you want to go? What's in the way? What do
Right.
you to help you get there? And so the way the framework works is they build what is, and then we help them figure out what if
Mm.
they would like to have. But instead of just talking about it, they build it. And so
Mm.
when they have that what is, and then they build the what if, a liminal space, that a space of unknowing, of dis-ease, of insecurity between what is and what if it appears before their very eyes. And we talk about what's happening in that space between the two. And generally, they want to build, literally and figuratively build a bridge to help them get from what is to that desired state of what if. What
Mm.
hap- this happens in every coaching conversation. It just so happens with Lego Serious Play, you see it.
Yeah.
And
No.
you see
Yeah.
the impossible, you can do the impossible. To
Mm.
a Chinese proverb.
I love it actually. I'm just like imagining as you're speaking, and I can see how transformational that can be and almost therapeutic as well. And I'm glad you kind of distinguish between, the psychology and therapist type of stuff where you go in the past and coaching, because I think there's a lot of misconception about what coaching is. So I'm happy to
Yeah,
hear that. But have you seen, like, especially having been a therapist in the past, like, is it like, do you sometimes put on like a therapist hat, or you like, how much are you, I guess, doing the balancing act between the two?
sure. Yeah, well, ethically, I want to make clear I'm no longer a therapist. I
Okay.
do not provide therapy. And as I've shared many times, especially early on when people are like, well, I'm choosing you because you were a therapist. And I say, listen, coaching is not therapy, but
Mm,
it or can be therapeutic, right?
right.
There's a
Mm-hmm.
So what I would like to say is that yes, people learning about a story that they keep playing over and over again, and
Mm,
and learning that they can stop that record from playing and play a new tune, if you will, and and usually that's in the form of shifting a way of thinking. And that is a here and now and future conversation. Sure, that record was initially scratched and imbued with that tune in the past.
mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to I'm not trying to have you change that record in the past. I'm just saying, does that song still work for you?
Yeah.
Does you want to dance in this way, but that song that you're telling me about, I don't see it lining up with how you want to dance. So how would you like to dance?
Mm-hmm.
And what song can we change now so that you're more aligned, that you're more, harmonious with the tune that's playing in your head. I'm getting a little deep and philosophical here. Hope you don't mind, but
Yeah,
but
please.
so
Yeah.
much of that is coaching. And you know not to belabor it too much, but it is challenging for many people to just shift that way of thinking or that way of being just like that, right?
Mm,
Need is to be anchored and to have something tangible to allow them to say, okay, this is the change that I want to have. And I'm pretending like I have Lego in my hand. I can bring some up right here if this here is the change that I want. And when I see it, I can talk about it and talk about how I want it to change or talk about how I want it to adapt. And then when the session's over, that story is still imbued right there in the bricks. It doesn't float away like most conversations do.
mm,
That's that is the power of being able to use these tools. And yes, I do like to think that so much of my work is therapeutic, and I
hmm.
think that's okay.
Yeah.
Do I
Yeah.
make referrals out if I notice that this is that no matter what, that song is going to keep playing?
Hmm.
That's when we say, okay, I'm
Yeah.
and it's a psychology term, but knowing the scope of practice and the scope of competence. Because I was a therapist, I have the scope of competence, but it is outside my scope of practice.
Hmm.
Help you in that way. And
Mm.
that's why I'm on the board of the International Coaching Federation, my local chapter, and I speak at the global chapter. Because the ethics and the only way we can build our profession is really to do it justice and
Hmm.
to know that, yeah, we shouldn't go into that space where
Right.
clinicians and therapists are. It's not good for them, us, and most importantly, our clients.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I like that distinguish the fact that you distinguish so well. I just think there's a lot of, again, just misconceptions about what all
Yeah.
those things are, and I think it's really but yeah, I agree. I think what you describe and just thinking about like playing with Legos and building that out or is already therapeutic for me. Just like it really is. Like there's something calming about that and there's a focus and I can also see how it can be such a great conversation starter for clients or even in group workshops as well. So,
Oh yeah, yeah.
mm,
So the some of the research of the work around Lego serious play methods revolves from Mikhail Csikszentmihalyi, Mike Csikszentmihalyi. He was the guy who founded flow states, right? So
okay,
a
yeah.
lot of us know the idea of a flow state. We've all been in one, and we're all really mad the moment that it ends because we were like, "That was great. How can I get back to that?" And what I tell people generally is the best way to get into a flow state is by using your body and doing something that is simple but challenging. That's what a flow state is. It's something that raises the anxiety just a little bit, but not so
Hmm.
much that you get nervous, and that is challenging, thought-provoking, but not so much that you feel, like you can't do it.
Hmm.
And so I, as much as I use and play with Lego all throughout the day, I try almost every night to just sit with a Lego kit and just build, spend a few moments quietly. It calms me down. And I think Lego will show you with their market share in the last few years that a lot of people, if you go onto the website, you see Lego for adults. There are tons of sets
Yeah.
just for us, right? It's not a kid's toy.
Hmm.
Well, it is and more. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Nice. So,
Flow states, that's really, really powerful for all of us that we need so
yeah,
much more when phones are dinging and everything, so much
absolutely.
content, so many distractions,
Hmm.
using our hands and kind of quieting down ourselves. And for me, it's doing it in that way. I encourage anybody to figure out their own way of finding that, finding that meditative state to relax.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's I agree with you. I catch myself being so distracted so
Oh,
and it's just like especially like my mind is like all over the place because I'm so stimulated from all different areas and I have to literally my thing is like I do walks just to
yeah.
get away Otherwise, you're just so stimulated continuously. So again, like I can see how Lego Sears play, like just playing with Legos is probably just so relaxing and you know, and it's just it makes for an engaged person as well.
And me, so and many of us have thoughts that go in so many different directions.
Mm,
And we do that because we can think in this way and that way and that way. But you can only really build one thing at a time. And so that's what makes it really powerful, is that the client, whether it's an individual or a person on a team, and everybody on the team is building something, they they build that one thing, and they talk about that one thing. And yes, we can move on to the next thing, but then they'd have to build the next thing. So it
mm-hmm,
really does narrow, in a good way, our focus, and it gets us to say, okay, what is this singular thing that I can focus on? Because yeah, I have to take walks too, just to get out, because there's so much coming at us. And
mm-hmm,
especially if we're moving throughout the world, right? If we're doing a lot of things and, figuratively moving, on our life journey, the more we move, the more things are coming at us, the more we actually have to step off of that path and go on a solitary walk for a few moments to find
absolutely.
our to find ourselves again, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Before I ask you my last question, where can people find you? Where, you know, where do you hang out at online?
Yeah, honestly, I think I'm on LinkedIn a little more than I need to be. That's my that's a that's where I go to hang out. But really it's you know it's such a wonderful visual and textual medium, and because of the work I do is so visual, it's a wonderful place for me to go and share what I'm working on, how I'm working on it. And so for me, it's LinkedIn, and my name, Paul Sanbar. And there you'll see me in all my brickness, my Lego brickness, and while it is professional, I as I tell people, play is the way. And, if I can briefly say, I used to shy away from owning that part of me. I thought, people won't take me seriously. I didn't work enough long enough in the business world before becoming a therapist, and now I'm back in the quote unquote business world, helping, leaders and, C-suite and senior vice presidents, and helping these and what will they think if play and Lego, heaven
Mm,
forbid, is what I use. But I also know, as soon as I really owned that, and I said, you know what? No, this is who I am. This is who how I don't mind being represented. And you know what? There are lots of people that may look at that and say, you are a bit out there, and that is okay. Because there
mm-hmm,
are enough people that do want to see that and go, wow, tell me more about that. And
mm-hmm.
LinkedIn is generally where they can find me. I mean, I have a website and everything, but LinkedIn is usually the best. I guess I've said it 3 times, so now
We know where
it's
to find you. And on top of that, I'm going to include the link in the show notes. So we'll make sure that you're there. The last question I ask all of my guests is what is one question you wish people would ask themselves more often?
Hmm. It's it's funny. I'm actually coming back to that script, to that record playing, and really it is the question that I would love for people to ask themselves more is whose song
Mm,
am I dancing to at this moment? Is it somebody else's song, from my family of origin, or my boss that's telling me to show up in this way, or is it society's song where I have to dance this way so I can buy the next coolest thing? Or is it the song that is emanating from my heart that really allows me to stand up and dance in the way that, you know, only I can dance with the song that comes from just me.
Hmm. I love it. I love it. Paul, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for sharing your story. And I look forward to hopefully more conversations as that book comes out, which I'm sure you're gonna you're going to
It's on its
release.
way.
It's on its way.
Fortunate series of overcorrections.
There you go. Thank you.